Hello and welcome to SiGMA TV and a new episode from the Executive Interview series. With us today is a man who wears many hats, and we will be talking about VR, we will be talking about going back to basics, we will be talking about iGaming, and the man is Alexandre Tomic. Alexandre is the CEO and the founder of Alea. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So I'm going to dive right in and show you a photo. I think you will remember where this photo was taken, and then we can discuss.
Oh, that doesn't make us look younger, right? It was
No one's talking about that. No one's talking about that.
2015. So we are like around almost 6 years ago.
Yes, and there you were super confident that, VR was really going to not be a big deal, but maybe be more mass-oriented and taken up by everyone. You really believed in it.
Yeah.
Do you still believe that?
So, completely. Now, in 2015, I remember talking with some VP from Facebook, and the guy was telling me it's going to take about 6 to 7 years. 2015, I said, "Oh, come on, man, it's about 2, max 3 years." We don't think so. Okay. And we had this conversation. Actually, he was right, because if you look at it, 2021, 2022, that's its prediction. And my prediction I failed already, clearly, because VR is not mainstream. However, Oculus Quest 2 has been released 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And today, 25% of Facebook staff is working on what they call mixed reality, whether it's augmented or virtual reality, knowing that Facebook has acquired Oculus and that 100% of what they're doing today is virtual reality. Okay, so we're really there. I mean, it's a question of months. Let's say you could say that 2012 was year of mobile, 2022 could be 10 years after year of VR. Just want to repeat, we don't have the numbers for the Quest. Facebook doesn't want to communicate around it, but there is a waiting list. It's really hard to get them. It's like this Sony PlayStation, the new one, and we have 20% of Facebook staff working mixed realities.
But we're talking mass adoption here. And I mean, I don't know about you, but I use VR, I use the Oculus, I use it mostly for fitness things like boxing, and I can take it for, say, 15 minutes max, and then it starts getting a bit too much. And also there's this other thing. If you're wearing specs, it is a nightmare. So do you think that the majority of people who are like normal people like me will take to it even?
Actually, you're making a very good point. And when we were discussing with Facebook back in time, they were saying the big problem is the female audience. Why?
It always is.
No, but why female? It's because they don't like to wear this, blah, 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 the hair. I mean, there are several reasons.
It's an issue of comfort, in all honesty, really.
Yeah, and so I was like, wow. And for the moment, back in time, they were mostly targeting male audience, which struck me a little bit, okay? But when we see the design of Oculus 3 that may come next year, everything is about making this technology lighter. And when we see what Apple should release end of this year or beginning of next year, which is more mixed reality, it's very, very thin. So when we get there, it's going to become easier. However, I completely agree with you. I wear VR never more than 15 minutes.
Yeah.
You're completely right about that. And when I take my goggles off, I have these big marks here that are very annoying.
Exactly.
If I start move a little bit, even if there is fans inside, because you hear them, the fans, you start sweating.
Yes.
And
And
you're
your
right.
face is hilarious right after.
Yeah,
you look at
you got
yourself.
this face, and it's very red.
It's so funny.
Yeah,
I mean,
Yeah, it's like you dived in some way or whatever.
Exactly.
No, we in terms of technology, in hardware, this is not the hardware generation that's going to make VR mainstream. And
Okay.
one last point I want to touch. that is in regard of our industry. I mean, we made a lot of studies. We invested more than $1 million in the VR project. We are the VR team. Okay, this studio is closed now. However, the assets we have, we start working on them again, so it's coming back. But what we've noticed that we were facing a lot of technical issues related to the fact that in our VR environment that was created in Unity and then in Unreal, it's like a video game. We had to insert the slots. So how do we take a web-based experience and you put it into a 3D environment and a 3D VR environment? I mean, it was a little bit complicated.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
And we went through that. And now for Quest, as there is no computer behind, there's another challenge. But there is a wall, a brick wall at the end. We're never going to pass. We, as an iGaming company product application, are never going to enter any store, whether it's Oculus Store, whether it's App Store tomorrow,
Right.
whether it's Steam or whatever. Why? Because all these stores are made for video gamers. And that means that we have a lot of kids.
Yes, yes,
And,
there is that aspect.
and this, I don't see that issue being resolved tomorrow. And I don't see that even when the VR hits the markets, we are going to be able to deliver a gambling product within these stores. And maybe we will have to wait 3-4 more years before it becomes mainstream enough that the kids less than 18 years old, they don't represent 70% of the population.
Yeah.
And when they become maybe 20%, I mean, the normal spread that they have in the normal population in the VR stores, then maybe the doors are going to open. It's not before 5 years or something like that.
That makes a lot of sense, but do you worry that by that time then maybe, I don't know, more cutting edge technology might have kind of superseded VR?
There's things that we don't even see today, or let's say technologies that are more related to augmented reality or mixed reality, and then VR, the fact that you completely close your user into this virtual world is something to be of the past, and it's going to be more like mixed realities where I'm in this room, I see a slot here, and I interact with the objects that are digital within a real environment, and VRs maybe even disappear in 5 years completely. I mean, we don't invest today or bet on VR. However, we have assets, we have knowledge. It's amazingly immersive experience that I recommend to everyone. And there is a little aspect that we didn't touch. It's the B2B aspect of VR. Companies like Zoom or Skype, I mean, Skype's going to be decommissioned actually by Microsoft. They bought it just to kill it so Teams can spread. But all this video conferencing tool, they're going to go VR. And because the experience you have is just amazing. Instead of being in front of your computer and watching the video, the face of the people, you're going to be interacting in a room with them, we're going to watch a TV together, and we're going to do a presentation, blah, blah, blah.
I'm trying to picture a business meeting in VR. I'm not 100% sure with you there that it's a fantastic idea.
Why?
But hey.
Why?
Well, it depends, I guess.
No, you have something in mind. It seems you have something in mind.
It depends on who has control of the VR area. Let's put it this way. The possibilities are endless.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's like a normal setup. There is a room, and we all sit there, except that it's virtual reality, and we have our computer can be projected on the wall.
Yeah.
It's really cool. So,
as long as I still get to keep my real coffee machine, I'll be happy.
No, the coffee you need to have it here for real.
Exactly.
But what we can do is if we take the casino environment, and we have people working remotely, whether it's in B2B or in B2C. And let's imagine a B2B. The VR experience could be used by your customer support, even if the consumers, the players, are not in VR. So imagine a player is playing on his mobile, your customer support is in VR, he has a very reduced experience on mobile, but it's very mainstream, and the customer support is seeing the player. An avatar of the player, and interacts with him, and it makes a richer experience for your people to interact with players where they can engage more with them. That's something we may see coming before a mass adoption of VR on the consumer part.
I see. Okay.
And actually, I think, if I'm not wrong, and I'm not wrong, MaxBets, a company based in Serbia that they have the betting shops and they have online casino. They have developed a VR technology to train their staff. I mean, the how do you call them in English? The croupier.
Yeah.
Or the guys that
The hosts
behind.
and the hostesses. Mhm.
That's crazy. So they have this. I've seen it actually on your video on LinkedIn. We see that coming in the B2B field and in iGaming.
I can totally see that. Yes, that makes a lot of sense. Let's keep it techie. If I say the Internet of Things, do you feel that there's, I mean, we were talking about VR and it's all about how technology now is in, I don't know, permeated everything, every single aspect, everything has to be connected. Has it become too much? Like we can't even, you know, put a finger to a switch that we
That doesn't
become
read your
so-
fingertip, but and maybe tomorrow even more than that.
Yeah, I mean, are we ruining everything because of this, including the planet? I don't know, just
Yeah.
spitballing here.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Look, I've got, I would have a double personality here, like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Maybe one would argue that it's the natural course of life and we're getting into more digitalization. And look at me, we talk maybe about that. I've got all these trackers. Even my ring is a tracker.
Oh yeah, I will ask you about those.
So, and that's where we should go because it brings us information and knowledge about ourselves, blah, blah, blah. and the reality is actually being nicer and better to us, because if I have Google Nest, I come there, it knows me, it follows me, the lights, the temperature of the room, everything is dealt by my dear friend Google Nest, and it's connected to an application. I mean, you have no idea. You can go very far.
Totally embraced.
Yeah, you're like, huh? Or the other part of myself is saying, sorry, fuck that. Go in nature, please take this little wooden house in the woods and grow your
own tomatoes.
the tomatoes first. Onions, tomatoes, carrots, blah, blah, blah.
Maybe some vineyards there.
Huh?
Some wine, some vineyards, you know.
Exactly, of course. Completely. It reminds me Vi from Vi is growing wine. Vi from Bed Construct. Very good wine, actually. And do these things on yourself alone and or maybe with people if you want. It's okay. But it's interesting what you say, because you talk with people and they reach a certain age, 40, 50s, they've done things, and now what they want to do is bring back to the community. They're not sure if gambling is the right thing. Is our industry, does it have a purpose per se, blah, blah, blah. And myself, I want to go back in the woods and blah, blah, blah. I don't want to live in the city anymore. And I would like my company to be in the nature. And Stripe did it. I mean, this amazing. This company has a higher value than Tesla, I think, today. It's it has been created a few years ago, 2012, I think, by these two Irish brothers. Guys didn't have access to internet, and they learned internet because they were in the countryside, you know, and so there were no internet there, and they learned internet through books. I mean, you learn internet in 2012. I'm not talking about through books. And they were kids, which means that the normal...
Even imagine it. I mean, it's not something that you read about it and you know what it is. You have to...
It's almost like they were Mormons, you know? They were living in the Middle Age for the era where they were living. We're talking about 2012. And they... had to make a deal with their parents, so their parents would buy them a special connection. I think it had to go through satellite because they were lost, really lost in the nature. And they built Stripes there. Their company was built there. So to get to the main headquarters of Stripes, it's lost in a green thing, you know. And that for me is a kind of symbol of what we may want to aim for, where we would create meaningful businesses And instead of being in the chaos of a buzzing city, you would take your team away. We will work from nature, which doesn't mean we wouldn't be productive. It's just that the relationship we will have with our environment could be different, and it doesn't mean we wouldn't be productive. Look at Stripe. I think it's the company in 10 years that created more value than any other one. I mean, more than a Tesla. Don't quote me, check it. But it's very interesting to see that. So I'm not sure I've answered your question.
What I'm seeing, what I'm hearing here is that you have two opposing sides to yourself. That part of you wants this whole city trekker kind of lifestyle, and the other part is a bit more back to basics.
True.
But I have also kind of noticed this with you, because your image is very much as the the urban man who came up with Slots Million, and with a lot of fun games and that sort of thing. But then the other side is we're talking about noir sci-fi. So you have an appreciation for the so what is this? Is this like a dichotomy? Is the future dark, or is it all about fun?
It's funny you're touching that side. Okay, we had a conversation about that actually with a friend of mine that's from the industry, Pierre, and we were talking about our shadow self and how it's funny. I'm looking at the cover of SiGMA a few years ago because it's quite interesting. It shows.
We will talk about that.
It shows that a little bit. Yeah, and I think every human being has that. Is our shadow self, and it's very important to contemplate it, not hide it. And I think Carl Jung was saying, "There's no trees that grows to heaven if it's not deeply rooted inside hell." And not saying that one part is negative, bad, or whatever, and the other one is good, but there are contradictions. And if there's a name that you would put on the world where we live in, it will be duality. We live in a world of duality: sun, moon, yin, yang. I mean, it's endless, and that's I think the most expressed quality of the world we live in. It's a world of duality.
I caught that those vibes indeed. Yes. But we should also talk about iGaming, really.
Yeah, let's do that.
You rightly pointed out.
Queen Malta.
Exactly. So the SiGMA cover, the infamous SiGMA cover, I should say, because what one notices in this cover as well is how close you and your business partner Charles were, like joined at the hip almost. Yeah. But now maybe not so much. Yeah. Is this like a conscious decision to shift from B to B and B to C and keep them a bit separate? Yeah.
So what we did in September last year, after 15 years working together, something like that, we decided to split operations. Charles, so the talk at that time, before we took the decision, the talk were about Charles taking over the B2C and me taking over the B2B, which is normally I'm more known in the industry, and he's more a number guy, right? Okay. And I contemplated. So we first restructured all the group before we even get to that idea, because there was a lot of companies adding up, etc., etc. And at some point, when we look at the picture, it's like you can see clearly this line, this invisible line in the middle: B2B, B2C. Are you fed up of me? Yeah. Me, I'm fed up of you too a little. I mean, I love you, but
long distance.
Let's try. Okay, let's try. And it's challenging because you, as an entrepreneur, a lot of entrepreneurs, they find a business partner, and even they repeat with other business partners in other businesses after. It's not just young entrepreneurs that do that, because entrepreneurship is something very challenging and very frightening. I mean, when you're alone, you have your employees here, your suppliers, your customers. At some point, they cascade, escalate, and comes to you. Behind you, there's a wall. There's nothing. There's no one to look at.
Exactly. It's all
eventually the government that's asking you for taxes, but
well, that's a whole different.
Your good old friend. And loneliness. I mean, seriously, loneliness, because you can't share that with a family. You don't share that with a partner.
It's a burden, yes.
And it's your silent little burden that creates loneliness, because when you have a business partner, you can look at each other and cry on each other's shoulder. And when we decide to split, I mean, we looked at each other. Okay, it's hard for us to work together because we're very different. Because we worked so much and during all this year, at some point there are wounds that are difficult also to heal. But okay, let's do it. I'll help you, you help me. Okay, yeah. I mean, I still can call you if I want to cry and someone should, yeah, okay, and vice versa. And that's the difficult part. It's you feel the feeling that you have. It's basically you're starting all over again. The business is existing, it's making money already. That's not a problem. The problem is that now you're alone.
And emotionally, obviously, you are aware that this person that otherwise you might vent with, or
Exactly.
is now not maybe that.
Sometimes you're weak that day. Hey, can you do the job? Talk to them. Whoever. Yeah, I'll do the job. And there's no one else now. I mean, you have your managers, you have your team, don't get me wrong. But this responsibility that you have at the highest level when there is no one behind except the wall in your back, there is this guy. And you can look at him and we can talk. When you're alone, you're alone. But that was, I believe, the most difficult part, and something we've discussed together. And I think that, I mean, for him, same thing. This thing that, fuck, I feel alone. Yeah, me too.
But do I get the impression that you are somewhat moving away from iGaming, or is it? I don't know if it's a vibe I'm getting, or.
Okay. So for the past 2-3 years, I've asked myself a lot about what's the purpose of what we're doing, of online gaming in general. It came a lot through our conversations with the UKGC. We got a UKGC license, I don't remember when exactly, 2017, something like that. So you go through all this responsible gaming training. You talk a lot with the UKGC. They try to make you understand, to sensitivize you to the problem of addiction. You start looking at the alcohol industry. You start looking at the tobacco industry. You start seeing some parallels, and you say, is that okay what I'm doing? And I remember actually we had this conversation with a guy I respect a lot, and Nick Gardner. And there was this other guy in front of us from DraftKings, and Nick was saying, I'm not sure if what we do is good in that way, I don't know, about players. And the guy was just looking at me and say, if you ask yourself these kinds of questions, you should quit the industry. I don't think it's true. I think that you need to ask yourself this question, because where we are today, we don't have an underage gaming problem. We do have an addiction problem, and we need to look at it and face it. And where we are basically is where the alcohol industry was in the 50s and in the 60s. So let me picture it quickly for you. Mad Men or Dallas.
Yep.
The guy comes at the office 9 o'clock in the morning, glue, glue, glue,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna have my first whiskey or whatever they call it in the US. And another one, and by the middle of the day, you're completely drunk. I'm not even talking about productivity. Or maybe you're not drunk because you're so used to it that you're not
Your system
drunk.
is kind of, immune to it.
So the behavior at the office, the productivity, shit. Behavior, you can imagine what happened with when people are intoxicated, okay, at the office. And driving. These people, they drive to the office, they drive back, they drive during the day, and they're drunk. Okay,
Not the best of ideas, no.
And in France during the 50s, kids were given red wine at the cantina.
Mind you, we had that in Malta as well.
Really?
We would have, yes.
Interesting.
We would have a little bit of wine, house wine snuck into.
It's good for your health. Why did we do it? We did it because it was part of our culture.
Yeah.
And every time we hear that, there is an industry behind. There are people that are selling this culture, whether it's milk,
Of course.
whether it's this, whether it's that. Okay. So at some point, we found out that having kids drinking may not be the best idea. Same for people doing in office. And I'm not even talking about the misleading ads from the tobacco industry, where basically they're pulling out doctors, athletes, whoever they could to say, smoking was good for the lungs, for the throat, for whatever. Okay.
I've seen some ridiculous adverts from those days.
Lucky strike. I mean, what they did is you see the face of a baby and say, "Oh, mommy, you're so grumpy. Why don't you smoke a Lucky? Because when you smoke a Lucky, you become happy." Something like that. Ow.
Different times altogether, I have to say.
That's bad. That's nasty, you know. And I'm not talking about the few ads, but if you go on the Stanford tobacco.edu website, they even have ads that were directly targeting colored people, black people, and kids. For the kids, there's just 2 ads they found out, but they were directly targeting kids. So if we get back to the alcohol industry, there's a prohibition. Then comes this era of free for all. We can drink and do whatever we want. And now, I mean, we have some regulation.
We have a system that hopefully works.
Yeah, but let's say it works.
Yes.
I don't want to give up on my beer with my friends in the pub.
Exactly.
And I don't want to give up on my glass of wine or 2 or 3 when I'm home and I'm having my meal. And neither I want to give up on my whiskey at night sometimes with my friends and whatever. Neither I want to go back where we were in the 50s. Actually, the gambling industry is where the alcohol industry was in the 50s. So if we don't do anything, the first countries, I mean, the very regulated ones, where it's Sweden, UK, they're going to fall. What I mean they're going to fall, we may have a full ban. And it's going to be an on-off button. And we don't want the on-off button. Or we may say, there's no good purpose in gambling. It should be prohibited. I don't believe that. I believe there is a purpose in gambling. I believe there is something important behind it. And I believe it shouldn't be banned. I believe it should be regulated, and not even by the regulator, by ourselves, us as human beings, part of the community, blah, blah, blah. We should understand that we can't let people gamble in any way, any form, and harming themselves. That's not possible.
That's a very sensible approach, I have to say. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, sensible, pragmatic, because again, I would tell that even to the most aggressive guy in the business. If you don't do that, they're going to do it for you, and it's going to be an on-off button.
Yeah.
So maybe you don't care because you don't operate anymore in UK and Sweden, and you've all floated.
But that's hardly the point. Okay, so I'm going to get personal again. So I noticed your collection of watches. I believe you are particularly into IWC. I spotted something there. Tell us about it and why you have so many watches as well.
So I'm not obsessed by time.
Are we sure?
I've got one real watch, which is this one, the IWC, and everything else. This is Polar. This is Garmin, this is Samsung, and the ring is Oura. Basically, they're bio-trackers. They track different biological metrics from your body, whether it's your heart rate variability, the sleep stages of your sleep, respiratory rate, body temperature. I can't name the stress factor. There is a lot. There are a lot of metrics there. There's one I don't have today, but which is very interesting. It's like an implant that you put under your skin. It goes deep like that, and it monitors what it's called the interstitial fluid, and it looks at your real-time glucose level, which your doctor normally doesn't have access to. You go to your doctor, you take your blood. You have one blood sample in the morning at fasting before you ate, and then he knows that you are at 80 deciliter per milliliter of blood. And That's all he knows. He has a picture. What he doesn't see is how your body is going to process food, exercise, stress, the impact on your glucose. And these trackers, they give you an incredible insight over your body and how your body is a machine that processes everything from food, sleep, water, what time you eat, how much you eat, how many times you eat per day, intermittent fasting, sports, what kind of sports, how long, how much water you drink, very important, what time you wake up in the morning, how much light you take from natural light in the day versus how much blue light you take at night. There are some trackers, I don't have it here, but look at the type of light that goes. I told about the temperature. It could be the skin temperature, the core temperature, which is inside you. And then you have the electrical conductivity of your skin, which is very interesting. I mean, it's endless.
I mean, that sounds both fascinating and creepy.
Scary.
Yes. So does it leave room to be spontaneous though? And because you're mentioning all these glucose levels and all these, do you still have fun? Can you still, have your drink, have your whiskey, have your...
Yeah, no, I see what you mean. And the other consideration could be what happens if tomorrow companies, they got all of this data and they know you better than you know yourself, and they wouldn't release you all the data. So, but to answer your question, I'd say that, I mean, personally, when you talk with biohackers, these guys, they don't drink, they don't smoke, they don't do drugs, they have a square life, okay? They know at what time they wake up, at what time they gotta go sleep, I'm not like that. I mean, I do sports, I do take care of my sleep, I drink water, I eat very well, I think now compared to how it was before. I do intermittent fasting every day, I do fasting every month, I do a longer fast every 3 months, I do drink water, and I do smoke a little bit, which is blasphematory in the biohacking community. And now when I want to drink, I drink. When I want to smoke more, I smoke more. When I want to do stupid things, I do stupid things. And actually, everything I do on a daily basis as a routine is I'm an Epicurean, if you want to. Epicurean is not people. We're not people that were having a boring life. It's just that they were having a very measured life during 80-90% of the time. And then while they were fucking up big time.
So basically you make up for it,
Exactly.
later. You keep a lovely, healthy balance, let's
Exactly.
say.
That's exactly that. To allow me having the life and the pleasures I want till 70, 80 or 90 years old.
Okay, I think we should close it off on this really good note.
All right.
Thank you so much, Alexandre, for giving us this interview.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for watching SiGMA TV.